At the time of recording this video, I'm 29 years old. I could go back and give my 20-year-old self some advice so that they could get lean, athletic, and feel way more confident with how they look. This is what I would say. Dieting pisses off a lot of people, and I've had so many people make comments about me not drinking and not eating the crap that they decide they wanted to. And ultimately, I realized that their choices don't impact me, and what I want to do is way more important long-term. Once I stopped caring about what other people thought about my own goals, I saw way more progress. I was way more confident in my choices. Most of the time, people are only doing that because they've created this image of you in their head and you're trying to break free of that, and they feel uncomfortable with that alongside feeling comfortable with the fact they're not progressing with their own goal. You're the average sum of the people you hang out with. So if you hang out with overweight people, you're more likely to be overweight as well. Unfortunately, that is the reality of it. As humans, we are group-based people. We like having company, we like having community. So if you're surrounding yourself with people that are consistently overeating, drinking every weekend, you're far more likely to indulge in those activities. And once I moved away from that and focused all of my time and effort with people that were more focused on self-development, wanting to be in better shape, and actually had a way more positive outlook on life, I was way happier and made dieting and getting in shape so much easier. This follows on to the next point, is that you can't get shredded going out every weekend. I used to do this growing up, playing cricket and rugby. I used to drink every weekend, thinking that training Monday to Friday really hard and being good and healthy with my diet would allow me to keep and maintain some really good results. All it ended up doing is that I pile on the alcohol belly and pile on the weight and skyrocketed to 80 kilos, which made me feel way more uncomfortable with how I look, and I just hated what I look like in the mirror. And one thing I realized is that balance doesn't really exist, priorities do. So you've got to pick one or the other at certain times. That's not to say that you can't have a bit of freedom here and there, but it's about what matters most. If you want to lose weight, make that the priority. Go and socialize, but just don't socialize and eat like a dickhead and drink a lot of alcohol. If you eat like a child, you'll look like a child. You won't look like the man that you want to be. You won't have that chest that you want. You'll have those man boobs instead. You'll have a belly that hangs over your stomach. And I wish I'd learned this sooner. I wish I played a much bigger focus on my nutrition when I was in my mid-20s. I used to pick up meal deals all the time, thinking that just smashing as much food because I could get away with the activity would be fine. Turns out it wasn't. That's why I got in shape. That's why I dieted a number of times to get really lean. Saving all these high protein recipes isn't going to get you in shape. Now I know they're so appealing. They look so good and potentially taste great as well. And I did this all the time, consistently saving them over and over again, coming back to me, I'll make them. But what ended up happening is I was just hitting the dopamine effect of, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be great. Where in actual fact, I need to focus on that long-term process, fall in love with eating great quality food, making good decisions with my nutrition, because it helped me feel like I was in control and more confident with my decisions, which ultimately made me feel more confident in how I look because I was getting in better shape off the back of that. A meal plan looks great, but if you don't follow it, it just ends up being a Pinterest board, which probably follows off the point. And what this means is that I would build meal plans for myself and I would download them all the time. I would never follow them. I would never just fully commit to following a meal plan for 6 to 8 weeks with some freedom on the weekends. That's how I like to do it. Monday to Friday, work hard, stick to the meal plan. Saturday and Sunday, little bit more freedom. Not much, like still eating good quality food and having the odd indulgence here and there. If I wanted to get in really good shape, I had to make that sacrifice, and that was something I was willing to do. Drinking more water does actually help with hunger, even if TikTok gurus say probably not. This is just anecdotally, but I've always been someone that's drunk a lot of water, and it's always made dieting easier. It's not a case of trying to stretch my stomach, but more a case of adding more volume on top. Sure, it meant I was pissing a lot more, but at the end of the day, when I'm eating as low as I am currently for the photo shoot 1 week out, but you're probably watching this video post shoot, I don't mind drinking more water. I just make sure I don't have any after 8 o'clock. Otherwise, I'm going to get up in the night for a pee. I used to snack all the time. Snacking is just a disguise for being stressed or not getting enough protein in. And I know there's going to be other people that will probably disagree with me within the fitness industry. But from coaching over 250 people, I've noticed a massive trend between the amount of protein that people eat and how often they're going to snack. We can cut that out within the first week of coaching just by increasing their protein intake, getting it consistently throughout the day. And I used to be an absolute fiend for this. I used to stress eat a lot. I realized that if I'm wanting chocolate, it's probably because I haven't got my protein in, or there's something else going on in my head that I need to sort out. And recognizing that food didn't solve the issue meant that I was able to figure out what the issue was, work through it, process it, and that allowed me to not use food as that crux. This is a big personal favorite of mine, but one big salad a day keeps the hunger away. It's true. Food volume is great, and the extra fiber that you get from a solid salad can really help. I have a big mixing bowl that I will use when I'm making these salads, and it's like 175 grams of chicken, 1 slice of sourdough that I cut up into croquettes, and then a ton of salad. Cucumbers, tomatoes for a bit of texture, and then a mixed leaf salad. So we've got some crunch in there, some rocket. And this allowed me to utilize some mindful eating practices alongside just getting that good quality food and volume in. Meal timings count for so much if you want to keep and maintain lean muscle mass when dieting. For years, I never really thought this was much of an issue until I hired my current coach and we really focused on food quality and food timing. I am bigger and stronger than I've ever been at this leanness because I focus so heavily on moving all of my carbohydrates carbohydrates to pre and post training. I don't think I'd be anywhere as big as I am right now if I didn't do that. And it's made such a wild difference to my physique at the moment. And I'm really grateful I did, because I feel so much stronger in my training sessions. I don't feel like I'm failing that often. I feel like I'm still progressing. I've gone from Bulgarian split squatting 15 kilos at the very start of coaching with him, because obviously nerves of training on my leg, to now doing 30 kilos in each arm, which is incredible. Calorie leaks are a real thing, and they'll threaten your deficit more than you realize. Those little snacks that used to add up, not tracking cooking oil, not tracking berries, not tracking those little snacks at work, used to be an absolute killer for me. When I was an in-person PT, there'd always be members bringing in chocolate, there'd always be clients bringing in sweets or drinks for me, and I would eat them the whole way through the day and wonder why I was never changing. When I started tracking those items, I suddenly realized, damn, there's 100 calories here in this olive oil. That biscuit was 150. All of a sudden, I'm clocking 300-400 calories in before I even realized it. And that ultimately held me back from being in the deficit that I needed to be in to drop the body fat that I wanted. If you sleep like shit, everything's going to get harder. So when you don't get great enough sleep, your brain switches into gear, pumps the cortisol up, which is not a bad thing, by the way, because it's just a hormonal response. And this increases the amount of blood glucose that flows around your blood, which then is a precursor for more insulin to come out. And then your body's like, shit, give me more carbs because of all this backload. And then what that means is that you'll end up craving carbohydrates for the rest of the day. Neuromuscularly, your ability to produce strength is also then down, which means you're even more tired going into training sessions. And so if you're trying to diet, having a better sleep routine makes everything so much easier. Tech is your friend. Getting an air fryer, microwave, slow cooker, and a blender have been an absolute godsend in every single dieting phase that I've done. It means that I can cook meals quickly whilst I'm still working, or I can blend smoothies that can help me bump my protein targets up. And I can prep all of this even overnight with a slow cooker, so that I have 3 or 4 meals on the go that are already made that I don't really have to think about, and I can just portion out from there. It takes the thinking away from having to focus so much on nutrition, so that I can then focus on more YouTube, or helping my clients get better results, or spending quality time with my friends and family. And I wish I'd done it sooner. I wish I had all this tech, and I know it's not always feasible. And if you have an oven, you can still do all of this. Just get a couple of deep dish baking trays and you can pretty much cook anything in those. Your lack of motivation doesn't come down to not having discipline, and it's taken me years to realize myself. When I've not been motivated to do certain things, it comes down to 3 to 5 things. The first one is that a lack of motivation typically means that you've got something stressful happening in your personal life. So when I wasn't really training very hard, it was because I hated my job. I was working as a gym manager, I feel like I was never progressing, didn't earn anywhere near as much money as I do now. Not to brag or anything, but I do a lot better than I did when I was a manager in London. It then comes down to not knowing what goal it is you want to achieve. And therefore, why are you even taking the effort to work hard? If you don't want to get in shape and you don't know why you want to get in shape, you're never going to do the work to do what you need to do. But then if you don't know what the path looks like, if you don't know what steps you need to do, and you don't know what those actions are to help you move forward, if you don't know how to stop snacking, if you don't know what food you should be eating to train better, if you don't know what training program you should be following to help improve certain lifts or gain muscle mass on certain areas or perform a high rocks or half marathon or triathlon, it's going to make it even harder, and you're kind of trying to lead yourself across a road blindfolded. That's never going to end well. Then you've got a lack of accountability. You're not a self-led leader, you're letting yourself off the hook, but then you've also got nobody standing over your shoulder looking down on you to make sure you're doing the tasks you said you would. That's why a lot of the guys come to us in the program for accountability. And if that's something you want, there's a link below where you can apply for coaching, and I'll be able to help you build out what it is you want to achieve, how we achieve it, and then hold you accountable to make sure you do the stuff you said you're going to do. And lastly, I would get in my own head a lot about motivation. If I wasn't feeling motivated, it was typically because I felt like the task at hand was too great. I'd start to feel overwhelmed and then not motivated to do it. So by breaking down the task, it meant it was smaller steps than trying to climb the mountain in one step. And it made it much easier for me to start completing things. Typically, most people don't realize this, and even I was guilty of it growing up, is the fact that sometimes the energy it takes to think about a task is more than the task itself. So if you can shorten the gap between thinking about doing something and then doing it, you're way more likely to then complete it. And when this does happen, it's important to understand that it's not a lack of motivation, it's a lack of systems and structure. So with those big tasks that feel extremely overwhelming, you need to break them down. You need to review your diary. Where are you not doing the things you can do, like meal prepping, going for a walk to clear your head after work, or going and doing your cardio sessions, eating your food. Even having that planned in your diary will help you feel like you're not as stressed, and you won't feel like everything's attacking you from every direction. If you're not a bodybuilder, don't eat like one. Now, for years, I thought that the only way that people should eat is clean, and I go between this as I've grown as a coach. I've gone from, you can eat whatever you want as long as it hits your calories and macros, that's fine, to, hey dude, you probably should follow a meal plan because you've never cooked in your life kind of stuff. And I think there's no perfect plan that works for every individual. Everyone is different, as we know, and it's about finding the right thing for you. We use a lot of different methods within the Perform for Life program, from non-tracking strategies to full-blown meal plan to macronutrient targets and even micronutrient targets for the guys that are doing sports performance and looking to improve in the sports that they play. And I used to make the mistake of thinking that, oh, if I'm going to train like a bodybuilder, I should probably eat like what? Eating chicken, broccoli, and rice, and thinking that's the only way to do things. And it meant I didn't really have much food freedom, didn't feel like I actually enjoyed things, and I didn't enjoy the process. But once I realized that you can find a balance, you can find that 90% good quality food to 10% a little bit more indulgent stuff, you're able to find a place that suits you. And everyone's going to be different from that. I place a higher focus on food quality because it makes me feel great, and I wish I'd done that sooner. I just want to lose a little bit of weight. This for me is something that probably ties into some of the other lessons that I've learned. But I really do wish that I was honest with myself when I wanted to physically change when I was younger, before I hired my first coaches. Because for years I wasn't confident with how I looked. I felt like I had that skinny fat physique, didn't really change too much. And it wasn't until I committed to really honoring that that's how I was feeling did things start to change, and I start to saw my body weight drop, my progress improve, my ability to stay consistent with my diet and say no to the right things at the right time, because I had a devil at my back and a hook to pull me forward. And once I had both of those two things, it made progress so much easier. And that means that balance doesn't mean doing everything. And it comes back to that same sentence, like having the cake and eating it, and realizing that it's probably not as possible as you think. Yes, you can have some of it, but you can't have it all. Yes, there's going to be times where you're probably going to have to say no, and there's probably times where you can have a little bit more. And again, it comes down to what are you prioritizing at that moment? Are you wanting to be in better shape? Well, cool. If that's the case, then Jack, look, you need to do something about this. The next one is probably one that is taking the longest for me to realize until I started coaching properly. When I was just interested in fitness, it was probably the hardest one. And that is that I let my ego get in the way of being held accountable. I thought I knew everything I was doing, and I was the top amount stupid. Dunning-Kruger. If you don't know this, this is the understanding that you start in a place where you're learning, you're growing, you think you know everything, and then you plummet off the edge of that cliff, top of Mount Stupid, into the valley of despair, because you suddenly realize there is so much more to understand about training and about nutrition. And it's only then you then start to gradually become more aware of this egotistical element that most lads have, and even I had as growing up, that when you start hiring people that know more than you actually learn more, and you're way more receptive to accepting that people are going to know more than you. And then you learn, and then you drop the ego, and then you go through that cycle again. And you don't have to overcomplicate meal prep. You don't have to try and make all these fancy meals. It goes against the whole you don't need to eat like a bodybuilder. But you can make some tasty recipes with the amount of seasonings that's around nowadays. You didn't really have those growing up. And now some of my personal favorites are butternut squash, chicken, beetroot, and taco seasoning, which seems like the oddest combination. But the flavor through the chicken, the sweetness of the butternut squash, the tartness of the beetroot, you can make some really tasty meals. And there's multiple ways that you can do that. You could cook the whole meal if you wanted, or the chicken and the carbs. I've done all three of these variations at times when I've needed to, because I've felt like it's needed at the right time. It's not something that's been like, let's do this, now we have to do that, now we have to do this. There's been many occasions where I've only been able to cook the chicken and the carbs and then just boil the veg afterwards. Don't eat all your calories before 12 o'clock. That doesn't go well. I made this mistake literally 2 weeks ago. I trained first thing in the morning over the weekends, and I'd eaten 1,100 calories before 12 o'clock, and I was starving for the rest of the day. I made some not great decisions with the timings of my food because I was training early, thinking that I needed to get my pre-workout meal in and my post-workout meal in, only to be left in the dark being like, oh God, I'm starving now for the rest of the day and struggling through. And so now if I'm going to train in the mornings, I make sure I have a small snack. I then move my pre-training meal to post-training, and then just shift everything back, taking some of the carbohydrates out from like lunch and dinner to then have around training in the morning. And it made going through the diet such an easier process. And the last one, you don't have to hide in the dark when you're dieting, because you still should be able to socialize. You're not going to live under a rock. And I think it's taken me ages to realize, because I thought that I had to say no to every social event. I thought that I couldn't be present with friends and family because I was like, I've got to do this. This is the hardest thing I've got to do. No one else understands. And that I can't enjoy myself in those times. But now for somebody who would class themselves as semi-sober and only really drinks at social events, I realized that socializing doesn't mean drinking, and that I can be there around the people that I want to be around whilst I'm still present. I don't have to feel hungover the next day, and I feel great the next day, and I feel productive the next day. And I wish younger Jack knew that, because he had a really bad relationship with alcohol for quite a long time. And now he's probably in a much better place because he's not drinking as much, and his anxiety is lower, and he feels more confident. He feels more productive within work. He feels like a better version of himself. You will find some golden nuggets or aha moments watching this video. And if you do, it'd be great to hear your thoughts on that and your experiences off the back of these lessons that I have learned. I'd love you to comment it below and we can have a dialogue about what that looks like. And if you like someone telling you what to do and how to get in shape and train better and eat better so that you feel more confident, lean, athletic, there's a link below where you can apply for some coaching. And there's this video here that's also going to tell you how you can get abs in 70 days. Probably worth watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please comment and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.